Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another video. So, what I'm going to do today is something I already did on past videos, but I am going to give it a name this time. This is going to be another retake. I will be changing other videos that I've done in the past and changing the titles a little bit, and then do a playlist. Just so you guys can see exactly what I mean by that. A retake is when I take a deck or concept, I do my thoughts and impressions on it, and then I give it a second look and talk about almost everything I overlooked from my first explanation and my first introduction with a deck series. This is going to be a retake on K9. If you saw my deck report, that I uploaded a little bit earlier, I talked about the K9 deck. I'll give slight introduction on what the deck is supposed to do and the gimmick behind the archetype. If you haven't seen that video, I will post it in the description. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to retake everything I said about this archetype and talk about a few other things that make this archetype a little bit more unique or stronger than my initial impressions on it. And just show you maybe stuff that could make this deck more enticing to the viewer compared to the last video. So, some people are probably still new to K9, even though I already spoken about it in the other video, but I will give another mention. These are all level 5 monsters that pretty much tutor themselves out, and they try to spam rank 5 XYZs. However, if your opponent activates cards in their hands or graveyard, some of this gets beneficial effects. The one thing I overlooked from Izuna from the last video is that her summon from hand is a quick effect, and that is a big deal. This is just an example of cards that activate from the hand. Strategies and cards that can activate from graveyard also apply to this, so these are not just the only examples. But let's say, for example, your opponent is playing the Blue Eyes deck and they activate Maiden on White. In your opponent's turn, this is something you can do with a hand similar to this one. If you don't know what happened here, Izuna can special summon herself in your opponent's turn because it's a quick effect. Izuna can send the Lupus, and Lupus Reborn effect is also a quick effect, which means Lupus can come back, and Lupus can also XYZ summon on your opponent's turn. As opposed to Jokel and Lantern, Lupus can XYZ into anything, including light attribute monsters, which means you can make Artifact Durandal. And Artifact Durandal is a really good card. Like, this card can outright just change the entire game if you pair it with cards like, for example, Droll and Lockbird. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Another thing I overlooked is that Hound's protection effect is only during the turn is summoned, but it gains attack permanently. So this can also become really big very quick. Another thing I also overlooked is, despite the quick play spells not being able to tag one K9 XYZ into another copy of itself, it can summon any K9 XYZ, and the Werewolf is not once per turn. That is a really big deal. This is an example hand. This is something that you can do with this hand. Let's say, for example, you don't get hand trap. So this setup doesn't look that strong, it only looks like one rank 5 and these two cards set. But during your opponent's turn, you can flip this at any time. And this will summon the Lupus. And the Lupus can turn itself into the Werewolf. And Werewolf, upon your opponent activating any card, you can banish one card from their hand until the end phase. This is really big. This is a really big deal. Like, you can essentially just shut down your opponent from playing the game if you just pick apart the right card in their hand. And not only you can do that once, you can do that twice. Like, there's no real restriction from for you doing this. And you're probably thinking, well, it's only until the end phase, so what's stopping you from playing on their turn or whatever? The Werewolf can attack for each material. This Werewolf can attack 3 times, this Werewolf can attack twice. This is already over 12k damage. And adding to that, during your opponent's end phase, you can banish the Experimental Liberation to just reset the other Liberation. And you can use this to tag into another XYZ. So the OTK potential in this deck is really high. But yeah, that's one other thing I wanted to bring up. The one other thing I also felt like is worth noting is that the light XYZ lock, like I said earlier, by showcasing you the replay with Lopez and Izuna, that lock is only with Lantern and Joko's effect. That is also a big deal because let's go with this replay before the other one. What happens if you have a hand that doesn't have those cards? We're going to kill KL Element for Joko. Joko is going to summon itself by summoning Lopez. Joko is going to add Izuna. And this is in a scenario you don't get hand trapped. Now you summon the Ripper. Because again, you cannot summon light monsters. Ripper is going to detach to the Lopez. And Ripper is going to add. We're going to add the Lantern. We're going to normal Izuna into Lupus. We're going to instant fusion for Swordsman, and then I'll show why it's play Swordsman. You can summon the Abalastar. We showed this on the last profile. And look what you can do. With these 3, you can summon Paradise Smasher. I don't think this card needs any production. We talked about it in the last video. This card's really good. If this card resolves, you're pretty much shutting down a lot of decks. And in a world where a deck like this one that really punishes your opponent from hand trapping you exists, being able to tutor this card could outright just be devastating. We're looking at a really RNG scenario where you don't know whether or not to hand trap this deck. And let's say you're holding the hand trap for a real threat. The Ripper can just negate whatever you're trying to use to negate your Paradise Smasher. Unless it's something like Infinite Impermanence specifically. But I think if you're doing that, you're probably going to imperm the Ripper. So yeah, like Paradise Smasher resolves, and then you Lantern into Lupus. Lantern adds you Liberation. You can quick XYZ this. You can XYZ this into King Tell. And this is another thing I overlooked. There are good rank 5 monsters that actually do have disruption effects. Like for example, the Divisor King Deus Machinex. This card can take the opponent's monster and attach it to it as a material. And this is not once per turn. This is once per chain. So essentially you can do this twice. Not only that, but because it has Lupus as material, this is untargetable. So we're talking about an untargetable monster that can take 2 monsters. add that with the liberation, making the Canine Werewolf on your opponent's turn. And yeah, you have a lot going on here. Now, let's say you actually do get hand trapped. Because we haven't shown any scenarios where you get hand trapped in this deck. Yeah. Yeah, this is the M board. Again, untargetable Deus Ex Machinex. You have your Canine Liberation to turn Ripper into the Werewolf. You have Experimental Liberation to summon another Werewolf. And you have Forced Liberation to just pop any card if your opponent actually tries to play through both your Werewolves. And this is not even counting hand traps. Yeah. This is scary. But yeah, going back here, there's a lot of other things that I overlooked. Like, one example is Sea Monster of Theseus. For those who don't know about the 2017 meme, this card was in a Yu-Gi-Oh article with Konami, and they deemed this as one of the most powerful targets for like instant fusion. Yeah, this got written down as a meme real quick, but who knows? Maybe this deck could bring back Theseus, and you can make really cool things with it. Like, you can make level 10 synchros with this. This card can search the Canine Izuna. This card can reborn both Izuna and Flame Swordsman, which is the reason I brought up Flame Swordsman specifically. Giant Red Hand can also add you Izuna if you use 7 Tachyon. Zexal Field is a really cool card. This card can make the Paradise Matcher lock real easy. And not only that, this card gives extra material to whatever. So, this can make your Werewolf attack more times. This can make your Ripper, like, just have more materials to negate more cards during either turn. Yeah. It's pretty cool the other things you can do in this deck. If you play 7 Tachyon, I think this card's no-brainer. I think the Queen Conqueror, the Princess Conqueror can also add this card. On your opponent's turn, the Queen Conqueror can add you Izuna, and the Izuna becomes a quick effect summon on your opponent's turn if the right conditions are met. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to try to showcase and talk to you guys. Trickstar is one other engine you can play in this deck. I think the Blaster is still one of the best ones you should be playing in this deck. There's also Overlay Booster. There's also like more of the bodyguard, battle guard cards. Yeah, I highly underestimated this archetype. I still think Yummy is probably the best deck in Justice Hunters. However, in a format where hand traps are warranted, this deck is really, really powerful. Very similar to how Exo Sister was really good during Tier Element format. Alright. That's it from me. More videos coming soon. Keep practicing and keep dueling.